They say the sun died on a Thursday. No thunderclap, no eruption, just a slow, sickly fading, like a wound that never bled but still killed. That morning the sky was its usual blue, dotted with clouds like cotton smears. By afternoon it had soured into the color of old bruises, a mottled purple-black that pressed against the windows like a heavy, watching thing. It wasn't a storm. It wasn't anything. Birds stopped singing first. I hadn't noticed at the time. Silence is easy to miss when you think it's natural. But something in my chest clenched when I realized the wind had no sound, the trees no rustle, the world no heartbeat. Time didn't stop. It just lost interest. Seconds no longer followed each other properly. My wall clock's hands began to twitch back and forth, unsure whether to move or stay still. I blinked and the tea in my hand had gone cold, blinked again, and the stove light flickered between off and on, caught in some kind of invisible stutter. I remember standing in my kitchen, feet numb on cold tile, the tea steeping in silence, untouched. I watched through the window as the world dimmed, not into night, but into something else entirely, a hollowing, a slow unraveling of color and certainty. Shadows no longer obeyed their shapes. They crawled upward, slipped sideways, and stretched unnaturally long across flat surfaces. Even the birds that had once perched on the power lines outside were gone, completely, not flown away, erased. And then came the quiet, not just an absence of noise, but a presence, a thick, choking silence that didn't just fill the room, it crushed it, compressed it like lungs under pressure. I opened my mouth to breathe and tasted dust. Time tasted like dust. It was then I realized I hadn't dreamed in weeks. No dreams, no nightmares, just sleep like black ink poured into my mind, thick, heavy, dead. The kind of sleep the earth itself must fall into after it has nothing left to remember. And in that moment, with my fingertips trembling against porcelain and the light dimming into bruised static, I understood we had already died. Not in flesh, not yet, but in meaning. We were ghosts still wearing skin, wandering inside the shape of what the world used to be. Corpses animated by memory, by muscle reflex and denial, pretending to live inside a reality that had already folded in on itself. I looked out again and saw that the clouds had stopped moving. Not slowed, stopped, pinned to the sky like rotting cotton, suspended in a sky that no longer cared to turn. That was the last day I saw the sun, and though I did not yet know it, that was the first day the hollowing truly began.
It was delivered in a weathered cedar crate, no return address. Inside, nestled in layers of faded cloth that smelled like old soil and ozone, was the object. A blackened fork-like instrument about 7 inches long, forged from some unknown metal. At first it looked unremarkable, until I touched it. The instant my fingers brushed its surface, a pressure bloomed behind my eyes. A vibration not of sound but of intention. My teeth ached, my spine arched slightly. There was a sense of being stared at from beneath the floor. The artifact had been recovered from a ruined subterranean chamber in the Syrian desert, dated at over 10,000 years old, pre-agricultural. Impossible. The chamber's carvings were older than Sumerian, proto-language glyphs etched in concentric spirals, nothing translatable, but all repeating one strange symbol, a circle split by a vertical line. The same symbol was etched into the fork's base. I brought it back to the lab, housed in the soundproof chamber I used for resonance testing. We didn't call it the fork until after we heard what it could do. My assistant, Ben, struck it gently with a rubber mallet. No sound came out. None. Instead, our instruments began to register a drop in ambient decibel levels. The room didn't just grow silent, it devoured existing sound. Even our breathing stopped echoing. The fluorescent lights dimmed for a moment. Then came a tone, not heard but felt, like something ancient and massive shifting beneath the earth. We didn't speak for a full minute after. Ben joked that we'd found the voice of God. But I could tell by his eyes, he didn't believe it was a joke. Neither did I. 2 weeks later, Professor Rains was found outside my lab at 3:17 a.m. Naked, trembling, eyes rolled back into his skull. He was pressing both hands against the vault door, humming tunelessly through bloodied lips. Security said he'd been standing there for nearly an hour. When they tried to restrain him, he screamed, "It's singing to me! It's singing in my bones!" Then jammed a pen into his own ears with such force they ruptured on contact. He survived, if you can call it that. He never spoke again. When I reviewed the security footage, I saw someone had entered the lab that night. The figure walked exactly like me. Same posture, same limp on the left leg, same jacket I wore to work, same haircut. But it wasn't me. I was 900 miles away, attending a sound symposium in Chicago. The timestamp placed me in 2 locations at once. I had witnesses, plane tickets, an alibi carved in stone. And yet, there I was, standing before the fork, unmoving, head tilted as if listening to a sermon no one else could hear. I began to lose time. At first, it was just a few minutes, then hours. I would wake up in strange parts of town with no memory of how I'd gotten there. One morning, I opened my eyes to find myself kneeling in the center of my living room, surrounded by a perfect circle of mirrors, every one cracked straight down the middle. Messages appeared in places I didn't remember writing. On the bathroom mirror, "Remember the silence." Carved into my desk, frequency 0 is the first and the last. It wasn't a voice in my head, it was more like a pressure, a presence. Something just outside the frame of reality, whispering through the seams. I stopped answering phone calls. I stopped sleeping. I began drawing the spiral from the chamber's glyphs over and over, on napkins, walls, even my own skin. And every night I could feel the fork vibrating from behind the vault wall, not humming, summoning. My colleagues started changing. Dr. Sethi, usually the calmest man on campus, tried to strangle a freshman in the quad, screaming, "You won't take my eyes, they're not for you." Campus security found 2 researchers locked in a broom closet, faces pressed to the corner, weeping. When pulled out, they spoke in dead languages, Babylonian, Etruscan, even Proto-Indo-European. None of them remembered it afterward. The local birds vanished entirely. Every species, not a single feather found. Just silence and trees that never swayed. Even my own reflection started betraying me. It would smile when I didn't, blink too slow, mouth words I hadn't said. Once I caught it watching me when I turned away. The world was unraveling at the edges, subtle but spreading. Reality like rotting fabric pulling apart in seams of madness. And the fork, it hummed louder. Then came the disappearances. New York City went offline without warning. Every cell tower dead, every plane grounded. Satellite feeds turned to snow. People posted frantic messages about static-faced figures watching from doorways, thin silhouettes wrapped in flickering black, mouths stretched wide but silent. The media called it the blank plague. But we knew. The fork had opened something. Those that stared too long into reflective surfaces began to vanish. First mentally, then physically. Just gone. Clothes left behind in the shape of a person, dust settling in hollow shoes. I kept the lights on at all times, stopped looking in mirrors, covered every reflective surface, but I could still feel them watching from just beneath the floorboards. In my fugue states, I had written hundreds of pages, spirals, sigils, words in tongues older than language. Some pages were singed, others soaked in ink I never bought. When arranged in the right order, they formed a manuscript, a guide, or a prophecy. One passage struck me most. The hollowing is the memory of what existed before light. To unmake the world, one must first recall the sound that preceded silence. I realized the fork wasn't an artifact. It was an anchor, a tuning key to drag our reality back into alignment with a different one. A world without flesh, without sound, without meaning. And I had opened the gate. The dead returned, not as spirits, but as echoes. My mother's laugh came from a broken faucet. My father's cough in the rustle of plastic bags. Voices of childhood friends rose from dust particles drifting in morning light. They weren't memories. They were intercepted frequencies. My body started rejecting food. Not out of sickness, but refusal. My dreams, when they came, showed visions of a planet split in two, hollowed like a rotting fruit, and something crawling out from within the core. It was not a creature. It was a concept made manifest. A frequency that wore flesh only to be more easily understood. It was coming, and it already had a name in my bones, the hollowing. In a final moment of clarity, I saw what lay beyond. The universe, stripped of its noise, revealed its original form, emptiness. Not a vacuum, but a devouring presence. The fork was a beacon. It called out across dimensions, and something answered. The end was not fire, not flood. It was unbeing. A slow unraveling of what makes self exist. Memory, language, time, all fraying like threads in acid. It doesn't want to kill us. It wants to rewrite us. As silence, as absence, as hollowed vessels of resonance. I am the last voice left in this building. Maybe this city. Maybe the world. The sky outside is no longer black. It's bruised beige like rotting skin. The clouds twitch unnaturally. The sun is gone, not set, not hidden, gone. And the fork is still vibrating, calling out. I've sealed myself inside this lab, broadcasting on every frequency I can, shortwave, analog, digital, even through the university's emergency PA. If anyone's left, forget me. Forget this voice. Forget this place. Forget sound itself. Because it only finds you when you remember what silence used to be. If you're still listening, if your thoughts are still your own, then you must forget. Forget the bruised sky. Forget the humming fork. Forget my name. Because what waits beyond silence remembers us all. And it is hungry for the shape of things that once dared to speak. The only thing that can stop it is true silence. The kind that has no memory, no witness, no echo, no end.